Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or night or evening or whenever this video is catching you. I hope to bring you some magical vibes into your moment that we are all experiencing. And to bring some magic into your life, I'd like to talk about a fantasy novel series called Elric. And this series is like 7 to 9 books long. It was written by Michael Moorcock, who's been an author since the 70s or something, maybe the 80s. And during that time, Michael Moorcock was really into sword and sorcery, a very kind of obscure kind of subgenre at the time. And he really kind of wanted to make his own mark in the genre, and he didn't really care for Lord of the Rings or Conan the Barbarian. He wanted to make a more nuanced, complex main character. And Elric in the series, the main character, he's considered an anti-hero. He doesn't always do the right thing, and sometimes he's consumed by bloodlust and rage, and he's brooding, and he has a very tragic story. And he's honestly a very interesting character. He has an interesting dynamic with this sentient sword called Stormbringer. And Stormbringer is part 1 of 2. There's 2 parts of the same sword kind of thing. And Stormbringer is the one that it sucks souls from people and absorbs them, and it gives strength to Elric, and it also gives strength to the sword. But the sword is it has its own consciousness, so Elric has to he has to battle the sword's will oftentimes, and he also has to rely on it to gain power to beat his enemies or his adversaries. Because you see, Elric, he's a dark elf, born from a race of a very powerful civilization of people. However, they're called Melnimbanes, or Melniboneans, and these dark elves, they're starting to decline. Their emperor and their reign has slowly come to an end, and this empire is slowly kind of coming down from its power, and a new world is starting to arise, and new people and new empires are starting to arise. And Elric was born with a deficiency, and so he was born albino. He's the only white dark elf in his kingdom. His mother died when he was born. He has to rely on potions and magic or sorcery of some sort to sustain his strength, or else he becomes very weak and frail. He's also the 492nd emperor. So these people have been ruling over the world for a very long time. And Elric is the king, or the emperor, and his dad hates him because when Elric was born, his mom died, so his dad blames him for that. And Elric's different in the way that he thinks. He wants to learn about the humans and what makes them tick, and he wants to learn the philosophy of humans, and he wants to understand their emotions, and Elric kind of has a more desire to learn about the universe and understand the mechanics of it, and understand wisdom, ancient wisdom. And he wants to kind of bring up a new age, where people can be together. So in that sense, he's a bit of a, I don't know what word is the best word to use, but he definitely has a peaceful side to him. However, he's also born of Melnibonéan blood, so it's in his nature to be ruthless. It's in his nature to be bloodthirsty. It's in his nature to be dark and cruel and unusual and violent. So he also has this duality to him, where he's not like everybody else, but he still has those instincts. And it's an inner battle that he always has to face. And, you know, in this series, Elric always is going on these crazy, like, multi-dimensional adventures, fighting all these weird fantasy monsters, such as like the people of Nadsokar, who are these like mutant-looking strange beings who live in a city of filth, and their city stinks so bad that it could like knock you unconscious, kind of thing. And they live amongst trash, and you know, he fights chaos gods, law gods, he fights demons, monsters, he fights dragons and ghosts, he fights just all sorts of, just everything you could think of, he fights. And the world is so vast in this series, and it's so fascinating. And the landscapes are just really cool, and his story is so heavy and so deep that it just makes you feel for him, you know, and it can make you reflect on your own life and how, like, you know, we have our own questions about the universe, you know, and we wonder about why we're here and what's the meaning of all this. And Elric tries to figure out those same questions. And he takes you on a very long journey, where by the end of it, you just feel overwhelmed with so many emotions that you really felt like you went on that adventure too. And Elric also has all these cool allies that he meets along the way. He meets this archer in red, and this archer is agent of law, and he fights for law. And you know, he helps Elric a lot, and he also has his general when he was an emperor. You know, his general helps him out. He has this poet, this little redheaded poet guy who's like a prophet with his words. He predicts things that are going to happen. You know, there's so many characters that he meets. It's hard to just sit here and remember them all. He meets princesses, and you know, he goes into people's dreams and he recovers objects from their dreams. He rides dragons. He betrays his kingdom, and he ends up destroying his kingdom, which that's kind of a bit of a plot reveal, but it's honestly not that big of a spoiler. You know, there's a lot of things I guess I kind of can't say because it'll spoil the story, but he has relationships with gods of chaos that he's able to summon. He's able to call upon elementals or just like certain powerful beings in the universe and summon them with his sorcery. And I just love this series so much. I have the comic book here as well, called Elric Stormbringer. Stormbringer is the name of his sword. And this is kind of like a little drawing of what he looks like. He has that smoky long white hair. He has ruby red eyes. He's albino. He's pretty tall. You know, and to go more into depth here with the Melnibonéans, you know, like I was saying earlier, how he has like the Melnibonéan in his blood, and he's more ruthless and he's bloodthirsty and, you know, just a very cruel individual sometimes. His people, you know, he comes from a background of people who are very, ruthless, very power hungry. They do as they please, you know, they can be very hedonistic, and they're very intelligent, and they have all this ancient power and sorcery and alliances with dragons and elementals and chaos gods, and they're a very formidable foe, albeit very dark, you know, and very twisted. And, you know, and Elric's trying to get away from that. And he eventually does. He eventually leaves his throne, and he goes off on his own adventures to find his own answers for things. And it leads him towards his fate, you know, and his fate is a dark one. And he's part of this thing called the Eternal Champion, which are basically just different versions of him in different dimensions. And what's cool about this is Michael Moorcock creates these characters in other books. Like, the other characters have different series, and they meet each other in their books because they're the same person, but they're just in different dimensions. And sometimes they fuse together to help each other out in their missions or whatever's going on in the world. And yeah, and Elric is always trying to find peace. He's always trying to find, like, you know, just a way to escape his fate. And every time he finds something, peace for a little bit, it never satisfies him. He always feels like he is compelled to have to, like, leave, or he's either forced to, oftentimes as well. Like, he'll find peace, but then the agents of fate will send somebody after him for whatever reason, because he plays a pivotal role in the outcome of the universe. And so inevitably, he can't escape. Inevitably, he is always forced to have to go through these really arduous, tough, difficult things. And he eventually accepts his fate. He does eventually do that, and he overcomes the bleakest of odds. But the story is still tragic. In the end, I would say it's a tragedy. And I can't reveal what those things are, but, you know, this is just the vibe of the overall story. And if you're interested in fantasy at all, you should definitely read The Tale of Elric. It is very well done. It's very imaginative. It's very creative. Some of the things that I read in there are, like, so abstract and so, like, weird. You know, it really can tickle your brain, you know, because it's like, it's so cool to imagine what Michael Moorcock writes down, because it's so strange sometimes. It's like you're, sometimes it feels like you're on a psychedelic because it's so weird. But that's what's great about it. And yeah, it's pretty much all I have to say about the series. I have all the books here. There's the first one, Elric of Meldenbane, and then you got Fortress of the Pearl, where he goes into somebody's dream to not rescue, but to obtain the pearl, and he meets these people called the Dream Weavers or something like that, and they tell him about the dream world and the multiverse. And then you get Sailor on the Seas of Fate, which was one of my favorites. It's 3 books in one. And it's like, about the past, the present, and the future, and crossing over into those different dimensions. And they actually cross the dimensions through the sea on a boat oftentimes. And then after that one, you have the Sleeping Sorceress. This one was really good. This one was really more complex. Like, some of his stories, like, he writes them at different times and out of order. So sometimes, like, his writing becomes more just complex and nuanced. And I would say it does that in this book. He has to save the Sleeping Sorceress in that one. And then after that, there's Revenge of the Rose, which is probably his most complex. Like, this is when he wrote this, like, way later on, but it fits into the story, like, before the last book. And one of the best villains are created in this one. And it's probably his most difficult antagonist that he has to go against, because the antagonist is, he's unkillable. He cannot be killed, but that's his punishment, is he's not allowed to die. So he's been alive for, like, forever, and all he wants to do is die, but he can't. And Elric has to fight him. And then Stormbringer, the last one, which brings a resolution to everything. It tells you what happens to Elric in the very end, and he has to fight this crazy war against, I won't say, but he has to fight a really big war, and it determines the outcome of the universe. So, yeah, if any of that sounds interesting to you, please read it. It's so good. It's so good. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll just, keep on coming up with more ideas to talk about. I'm kind of just, trying things out right now. So yeah, love you guys, and peace.